Welcome to Caching Waves. This is an Elliott wave update for Bitcoin. Now on this video I'm going to be going pretty in depth on the smaller time frames, but just a quick 30-second recap on my primary out on the daily. Since the low at 15,476, have this as a wave 1, 2, 3, 4 complete. Looking for our fifth wave. Target for that, I took the extension of wave 1, extended off of wave 4 at 49,000. The 1-to-1 extension is at 98,151. So that is our target for the fifth, unless we get extensions. Extensions are possible because we didn't hit the 1.618 extension of wave 1 off of wave 2 for wave 3. Now I also took the extension in time of wave 1 off of wave 4. That gets us out to the end of December, around December 27th, 26th. Now again, these are just guidelines I use. There's nothing concrete here. This is more to keep you in line of where you expect to be at that time if this is an impulse. All right, so we're going to be focusing on the smaller time frames. We're only focused on bullish counts today. If major structures break, I will show you my bearish counts, but this could be a pretty long video. So we'll just start with the bullish scenario and the fourth wave complete at 49,000 according to Binance. Okay, so we have a couple different counts, and I'll talk about my bias in a moment. First is this area here. Now I have this as either a wave 3 or a B wave. And the way I have this divided up, it's very ugly. And when I get very ugly waves, I more so consider them corrective than impulsive. But this can also be a 1, 2, 3 as opposed to an ABC. Now, last video, I showed this as a diagonal. I still believe this is the diagonal. We just had a very, very short wave 2. Happens sometimes in diagonals. Obviously, ideally, in my video, I wanted this to be like an ABC, something like this, and then we continue. But I've seen it many times in the crypto market where that's all we get, and it does count as a diagonal. And I'm trying to keep things as simple as possible without putting in too much complex corrections. This counts, this is valid, so, and it's the simplest count, so I'm going to be using that. How this counts is a wave 1, 2 with a flat, 3, 4 with a flat, fifth for our A wave. We then had a complex correction for our B, then had a diagonal wave 1, 2, 3, triangle 4, 5. I like this count because we also hit the 1.618 extension of wave A off of wave B right there to the tick. Now I always mention we always look for 1-to-1s for our C wave. Our second most common target there is the 1.618. But when we hit that 1.618, it does switch probabilities that this could be a third wave in an impulse, right? So I still lean that this is an ABC just because of the ugliness of this structure. It's not clean by any ways. It doesn't bode well for guidelines as for like channeling techniques and all that. And the waves aren't that clean. So I do consider this more likely a potential short-term top. Okay, so where would that put us then in our diagonal situation here? Oh, one more thing. If we do get a higher high here, I'll talk about that in a moment. But as of right now, this count I have would have our wave 3 and our diagonal complete. Now this is where guidelines aren't ideal. So if we have this ABC, I'll take that off. We didn't hit the 0.618 extension. As you know from my videos, I look for between the 618 and the 786. But this happens sometimes as well. We did hit that zone on linear scale. So I'm kind of in this area where it's very difficult to have a highly probable count, right? So when that happens, I go to shorter time frames, and I'll show you that in a moment. So is there any way on log scale we make another high here and our third wave is over here, right? And then all this gets adjusted to the upside. It is possible, and I'll show you that scenario as well. Let's just get this off, go back to that zone where we had our ABC. Now, what's kind of annoying about this is if we look at this move here, I didn't draw this up yet, but this also can be an ABC for a W wave. This can be a triangle, A, B, C, D, E for our X. And this can be a 5-wave move as in A, B, C, right? So that would become our WXY. That's how we get one more move to the upside. And our third wave just gets bigger in the diagonal, and we come to that ideal zone. So you can see how we're kind of in between on these guidelines. Technically complete an ABC, but can also turn into a WXY if we get one more move to the upside, adjust everything. But we'll talk about trade strategies here. Now, if we do hold this level as our short-term high, I would look for this to continue to the downside, overlap with our wave 1 to create that diagonal, then look for our 5th wave up, and the 5th wave obviously needs to be shorter than wave 3. And we'll talk about those targets in the next video. But this is what I'm looking for. Invalidation of that is at 56.78, right at this level. But ideally, we hold this contracting nature here of this diagonal. We don't want an expanded diagonal. It's low probability for that, right? We want to keep the contracting nature. So we'd probably want to hold between the 382 and the 618 here of this third wave. Okay, so that's how we can either come up one more, make our 4th, make our 5th, or we come down right now. My alternative is the flat correction. I did get a comment before saying, why did you give the flat correction? One thing you'll notice in crypto, especially when we're in a bull market, is this becomes the standard correction. A lot of people say like these are rare. Like you go back at Bitcoin, check previous bull markets, this becomes the standard correction as a running flat. So I'm not sure, maybe some people haven't done their research by backtesting this stuff, but it really does become the default correction. I look for these specifically over zigzags and everything else when we're in a bullish market. But anyways, this is actually fitting the ideal scenario. As you see, I was reaching for targets in the other ones unless we get one more high. But we take the retracement of the A wave, put on the 1.236, 1.382. That is our ideal zone for a B wave. Invalidation of that is at 66.8, 65.10 at the 1.618. But this is our ideal zone to get a 3-wave move to make a flat. Now we can make a running flat, which is where this B wave comes again above this W wave and then protects the A wave within this flat. That's a running flat. An expanded flat would be if we make a lower low below this A wave and then we move to the upside. My default is running flats. I explained why. You're welcome to backtest that yourself. But this is currently my bias. And we'll take a look at the very small time frames and take a look at how we can take advantage of that. But I put on the 1-to-1 extension of this A wave off this B. That takes us to 58,333 and 58,093 on log. I usually go with the closer when I'm targeting this stuff. So we'll see if we break this channel as well. Came out a little bit, looks like a modified. So I'll be looking for a break of that channel to get probabilities up. But we'll talk about the smaller time frame in a moment. But after this, I would be looking for a Y wave, which would be a 1-to-1 extension of this W off the X eventually when we get it. And I'll update that in the future and what that count would mean. But it would keep us moving to the upside and possibly a larger diagonal pattern. So that's what I'm looking for. And there is the option as well, as I mentioned, If we do get this one more move up, it does potentially become a 5-wave move. And you know I look for 1 2 1 2s. Let me get rid of this diagonal. So if we come up to this zone between the between the 618 and the 1-to-1, but don't quite hit the 1-to-1, that does leave open the opportunity that this can be a 1 2 1 2. So that would be extremely bullish. We've gone over this count. It's very ugly, but it does technically count as an impulse as well. But it's obviously not my primary, not even close. But I have to be aware of that, because if we make some nice correction here after completing something like this, we need to be open to the possibility that that could absolutely launch, right? You just have to be aware that it's possible. That's all. Okay, but these two are, I would say the highest probability is the WXY, this one, just because of the zones we're hitting. We have an ABC complete. And this would be my second count, just because we didn't quite hit that 618 and 786 on log scale. If we had come up to that zone, I would be leaning with this one, and if we make one more high, I will be leaning towards this one. But if we come down from here, from this zone right now, I'd prefer this count. Okay, so, and one other thing to note on this, since this was so 3-wave-ish, I always say a C wave should be longer. This is one scenario where we can get a fast drop. We can get a flash crash, something like this, that freaks out the whole market and then very quickly recover. This is one scenario where that can happen, where it doesn't take longer in time. Okay, especially if we get an impulse down. All right, guys, so let's go down on the smaller time frames, see if we have anything here. I'm actually looking for a short setup today. So that's our high. I see 3s. 3, 3. Could be a diagonal. Let's see what pans out here. Hit the 618 extension of the first wave between the 618 and the 786. That's what I look for a diagonal. Okay, let's see our third one. Again, just through that 786. A little bit of overthrow there, but it's shorter, so third wave is not the shortest. So I would label this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the downside as a diagonal. It's more of a channeling diagonal, but it looks like we have a series of 3s. ABC, possibly a flat here. We need at least the 90% to be considered a flat, almost to that 1.236. It would have been nice to come right to that zone, but possibly a flat. This looks like a series of 3s, WXY, ABCX, ABC. So that's potentially a flat. I'd be looking for the 1-to-1 extension, A off of B where they're right now. Don't want to come past the 1.618 if that becomes extended. So somewhere in this zone, obviously want to hold above the golden zone area. That would be from wave 5. So I'll have to keep an eye on these, but looking for this to be a 3 or a 5 wave move as either an A, B, C or a W, X, Y, right? And we'll just call it an ABC just for general purposes, but we're at that one-to-one extension right now where C equals A. Right there, as you can see, but there's kind of the zone you'd want to be. B waves, we want to see at least a 382 here, but we don't have a good pivot to pull off of. I'll go from low to high. But yeah, we'll see. That's a decent setup there. I don't quite like the look of this yet, but I am looking for a short here. And obviously, if you go past your absolute invalidation for this level, depending how you trade, your decisions to make is this high up here, right? At 65,000 according to Binance. It's funny, on Binance we're getting a lot of even numbers, like right on 65,000. Crazy. This could also be a diagonal complete, but it doesn't quite have the shape, but it is there. But you can see when you get on the smaller time frames, it's very difficult to count. That's why I rely more on Fibonacci levels and shape. When we're on the smaller time frames, I mean, I'm on a 3-minute time frame, right? But the way I would label this is as a wave 1, 2, looking for that 3, 4, 5 down to the downside, or an A, B, looking for a 1-to-1, right? So that's the trade setup I'm looking for today, guys, either to the 1-to-1 extension, or I'll be keeping track of the wave count as we come down. Remember, we can keep coming up here and make an expanded flat as a 335, but this is the area I'd be looking for in validation of that up at the high. All right, guys, this has been a long video, and I'll make sure to update this more regularly, but I am looking for a short today. All right, guys, that's it for Bitcoin. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.